What's going on, everybody? Happy New Year. Welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Brian, Happy New Year.
Likewise.
A lot of DC news. Creature Commandos. All it took was a silhouette to start the conversation, Brian. And we got to get into this Batman delay and how they're trying to go. I have a proposal. Not even, something to think about. Is rolling the dice for sure, but I think it's worth doing it. The Lobo conversation is going to be very short. Because we spoke about this a year ago. Nothing has changed. There's one thing I would have done with this announcement. Clayface. They're really moving forward with this, Brian. The fact that you mentioned Clayface is that there's news. There's a reason why James Gunn wants to release this. Obviously, he feels that the script is good and that they're ready to roll on it. And if he's excited, I'm somewhat excited because there's a bunch of things you can do with Clayface that could make it interesting. More Superman screening chatter. To me, Brian, this is just another, what do you expect when it comes to, this looks like this or it looks like that? Where do you think it came from? It doesn't, this is, to me, a non sort of debate, sort of. It's just a mention and it just doesn't really do anything other than what this movie has to do. For me, there's a lot more to discuss in terms of the future of the DCU based on this movie, not this. And then we'll get into some Marvel news. A lot to talk about there. I was talking to Freddie yesterday because I usually use Freddie to prep me for my flow, And it's crazy when I think back in terms of how we used to talk about Marvel and DC, and now the tables have turned completely. But Bo DeMayo says some stuff that I agree with him with regards to the what if. What if to me is I didn't like it at all, Brian. And you heard what I had to say in the last show. Godzilla, Voltron, Spider-Man teaser, my friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That one, Brian, I am sort of interested in seeing.
Agreed.
It took me a little, because I'm so turned off by Marvel. I sort of scoffed at it at first, and I was like, I don't want to watch this. And then I looked at it again. I was like, this is interesting. I want to see where this goes. Long ago, Brian, I said the leader would look ridiculous. And here we are. And then we'll get into Garfield. Brian, they went to him and said, lie. Just lie. Now he's walking around with an L on his head because he's a liar. That's crazy. Just say, don't say. Anyway, we'll get into it. DCU, Creature Commandos, Brian. Have you caught up to the entirety of all the episodes? And how many are there? Are there still any more?
6. There's 6. Yeah.
There's just 6?
Yeah. But the Dr. Phosphorus one is the one that everyone's talking about. And it's so funny. I didn't even see. So I was watching it. I got to be honest. This show is, as I said, I can see that it's well done. Yes. I think some of the voice work is really good. I'm enjoying Frank Grillo in particular as Flag, and obviously we know Viola Davis as Amanda Waller was fine. So I've been enjoying some of the voice work, but it's not a show that it's like riveting me the same way that X-Men 97 or Blue Eye Samurai did. So I do find myself like I'm watching it, but then I'll be like getting distracted a little bit. So I didn't see the shot because it's like
Wow. Yo,
you know what? Half a second. And I didn't even see it the first time. So when you texted me, I was like, what? So I went back and watched it again because I was like, what?
Right.
What? See? And it's literally like comes and goes. And it's literally taken over the internet since that happened, which is what we said. The second this dude does anything, the
It's-
world notices.
I went to the episode and I was just fast forwarding and I couldn't find it. That's how long he was in the episode. So I had to like pause and see, oh, is it from here, whatever. But look at what everybody's talking about.
Yeah. I mean,
You don't think about
over-analysis.
Superman. Yeah.
Over-analysis. I mean, the where people have taken this one shot tells you everything you need to know about Batman as a character.
That's all it took. James Gunn, I don't think realizes the power of Batman, Because why put him out there? Because now no one's thinking about. I wasn't thinking about Superman. I was thinking about who's Batman going to be, how they're going to do this. Those are the questions that you don't want to ask because you want people to stay on Superman.
So if you haven't, okay, we're spoiling it, but honestly, like there isn't that much to spoil. Like it's an episode.
No.
By the way, there's one more episode of Creature Commandos.
Okay.
Seven.
Okay.
So there's a shot in the Dr. Phosphorus centric episode of sort of they're at almost like a club or like a club party. And
it's a montage, and then it ends there.
And then you hear like a scream. There's a pan up to skylight, and you just see the silhouette of Batman for half a second, and that's it.
Yeah,
he doesn't move. You don't hear him. There's nothing else. It's just that, and like every story has been dissecting how he's drawn, the physique versus Robert Pattinson, and then James Gunn then like just pours gas on the fire where he's basically like, "Yep, that's the DCU Batman right there."
But nobody's talking about Superman now.
Nope, not
until Super Bowl.
Yeah,
when we get another trailer, right? But this is the problem, Brian. This is the problem with Batman. And it's not a bad problem, but you want all the attention on Superman. I think you should have all the attention on Superman. Showing Batman at this stage, knowing that he's going to be in there, we've had no announcements, has been fine, has been good. But now that we see this, the conversation is always going to be this, regardless of what happens with Superman.
I agree. Now, I do understand. So James Gunn offered a little commentary about this because this went so viral that he basically had to like weigh in. I think what he was...
He said, "I'll be back, kids." Sorry, Dad, I got to go to work right now.
Yeah, well, if it gets too out of hand, what they'll do is they'll go into post-production. They'll like re-release the episode minus that shot. And it'll be like, did you see the version that had Batman in it? No, what he's trying to communicate, I think, is two things. And he sort of alluded to it in his comments, in his responses. Number one is he wanted to emphasize the kind of the malleability of his DC universe, which includes animated to live action. That's what he's, right? So this is the point about Viola Davis and Frank Grillo and the Creature Commandos. We know there's a plan someday for them to effectively transition Cameo appear in the same world as the David Corenswet Superman. That's been a creed of James Gunn's. So by showing an animated Batman, he's effectively letting you know, like, these characters all can kind of go back and forth as we need them to.
Yes.
So David Corenswet, for example, could voice an animated Superman at some point in the future.
Yes.
And maybe he doesn't see the thing is Superman doesn't really fit the Creature Commandos storyline. But I guess you could argue, had you wanted to keep the Batman conversation off the internet, you could have just had Corenswet pop up as either Clark or Superman in Creature Commandos somewhere to let people know about this interchange. But I think that's the number one thing that he was trying to do. And I think the number two thing he was trying to do was he was trying to let you know that no one is off limits when it comes to the animated. That's the part where I do wonder if James Gunn understood the power of that one shot, because he understood that, like, if I put Batman in here, it will let everyone know that, yes, like, Batman exists in this entire world, animated and live action. And he does make a reference to that in his comments where he kind of is like, yeah, we're just trying to inform people that everyone is out there. Like, so this is, I think that's what you say, like in the Superman teaser, the reason why you see some of these other characters is an acknowledgement that they're all there. Like all the fans know that. We're not trying to hide that from you.
Yeah.
And so in this case, we're not trying to hide Batman from something that maybe James Gunn would argue would draw the attention of Batman over time. So, I kind of get it. I just wonder if he understood exactly how big of a deal this was going to be.
This sparked a type of idea that couldn't work. I mean, it could work, but it is a risk.
Yes.
Because there's this talk of having various Batmans out there and the fans being confused. I think the fans being confused part, especially new people who may not follow, I think we should be able to treat people intelligently with respect to what's going on so that you're not confused, right? You get ahead of that. Now, once you've done that, I say go ahead with your DCU Batman and have Matt Reeves do his thing. And even go beyond that with a Batman Beyond movie. Here's what I'm saying. We've seen 3 Spider-Man in a film. We've seen all these different Spider-Man and everybody's applauding it. Whatever. You can do this with Batman. Why? I saw Batman Ninja. That movie was horrible. What I'm saying is with Batman, you roll the dice because I think Batman fans will see anything that's good Batman. I've seen the Batman, the animated series, Batman, Justice League. There's Batman all over the place. Regardless of what world he's in. Batman, the Cape Crusader, everybody tuned in. Not everybody, but Batman fans. If you're a Batman fan, everybody tuned in. What I'm saying is roll the dice, do what you want to do. People are going to go see the Batman. Why? Not because the Batman was dope, even though it was dope, but because of the Penguin, the attention that it got. People are going to see that regardless. And now that you've put this out, this obviously doesn't look like a Pattinson version.
I want to get into that. I think people are reading a little too much into that, the Pattinson thing. I was thinking about this when Gunn is talking about the kind of the fungibility of animated versus live action. That means you do have to be careful how you draw your animated character, because that actor or that portrayal, if you intend that to then become a live action version, can't look radically different, right?
Yeah.
So when I see Rick Flag in Creature Commandos, I'm assuming that's been drawn with Frank Grillo's kind of grizzled
in his likeness
to some extent, so that when he comes into live action, he kind of looks the same.
And he won't, Brian, in this movie. I think he's wearing all black and his hair is not gray.
So to that point, I think it was very purposeful that you only see Batman's silhouette, right? So people are drawing a lot from the physique, but you don't see his face, even the part underneath the cowl. You don't see exactly how the suit looks. Because to me, that part is all TBD. Like, I don't believe they've finalized that.
No.
I think all that Gunn was trying to signal was, it's a prime Batman, right? It's not like, to your point, it's not a Terry McGinnis, sort of sleek junior Batman. And I think people are interpreting, well, they can't be Pattinson because Pattinson is younger Batman. And I'm not totally saying that, because I'm like, wait a minute, look at the time frames here in which Brave and the Bold is realistically going to appear, or DCU Batman live action is realistically going to appear. I mean, that is 5 years off, 6 years. It is years away.
Yeah.
And like Robert Pattinson by then, just to say, it will be 40 something. And like, you're telling me he can't put on 20 more pounds if he had to, 20 more pounds of muscle and be a little, like, of course he could. So this idea that like, well, this build looks different than Pattinson's Batman now, I put no stock in that as like a conclusive. I tend to agree with you. Again, I think the betting favorite is, because Gunn has said it himself, Pattinson is not the DCU Batman. But I think, again, that debate is happening at a studio level. It's not happening at a creative level. And so I just don't think it'll be resolved until after
the
Batman 2. And I certainly don't think it's going to be resolved before Superman. To your point, look at what 1/2 second of a silhouette animated Batman did to the internet. What will it do if they announce who
You
the
forget
DCU
about
Batman
Superman,
is?
yo. You forget about Superman.
Exactly.
You forget until you see release and more stuff that they'll have to, like, stuff that we don't like, Brian. They'll have to show us more to get us excited. Possibly. We're already excited, but the silhouette of it was a silhouette of Batman for like a half a second, and everybody went crazy.
Yep. You got my brain turning now. Okay, so the Crisis on Infinite Earths Batman story, basically the Batman offshoot, where we get Pattinson, Bale,
Yeah.
Richson, Keaton, Clooney, and I guess, all due respect, we probably would get the headstone for Val. I don't know if they could get Val in here in a meaningful way like they did in Top Gun, but Affleck. So we get all of them in one movie. Can we get all of them in one movie in one fight scene?
I doubt that. But what I'm saying is, Brian, what are your thoughts of having different Batmans? Like, you have DCU, and we have the Batman, Matt Reeves universe.
I think in my mind, because of the Batman lore, there's room for 3. I think. And I think there's room for the Batman Beyond, like that specific relationship of elderly Bruce, Terry McGinnis. Absolutely, there's room for that, and it looks so different. The suit is so different. It just doesn't compete in my mind with another.
Exactly.
There's Prime Batman. Now that one is a lot of room. You can kind of go anywhere from Pattinson's age or even a little bit younger to, obviously, you could go as high as like Keaton, or you could kind of go anywhere in there. That's your Prime Batman. And then I think there's kind of the Brave and the Bold / Dark Knight Returns type of Batman. So now you don't have a Terry McGinnis. It's not a Beyond World. It's just older Bruce. He's kind of doing something for someone else. Now, he's not necessarily the only show in that.
Yeah.
I think you could do all 3 of those as long as the age gaps of the actors and the looks of the actors are appropriate. I think fans can keep that straight. I think if you're doing like 2 prime age Batman at exactly the same age and time, I think that's where it starts to get kind of funny for the audience. So I would say 3 is kind of where you want to top out.
That's exactly. And my reference to Spider-Man and some of these other, Spider-Man has been just the one, right? Has there been any other films where there's been multiple of one character?
I mean, you mean for any length of time? Because the Flash movie obviously does.
Oh, yes. There you go. That was the other one I was thinking about. Yes. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying we should do that with Batman. I'm just saying that we've seen it and we haven't gone crazy. What I'm saying is release the Matt Reeves universe, his Batman universe. He's doing it way different than I've ever seen it done.
Yeah.
I'm there for that. DCU, you Brave and the Bold, that's a different Batman. I understand that. As a Batman fan, I understand that. And whoever doesn't understand, let me show you. Let me help you understand. And then you do your Batman Beyond. I don't see if you tell good stories and do them appropriately, which I know James Gunn is going to do. What's the problem? Take that chance. Forget about all the fans we're not can't cannibalize, whatever. Yo, it's Batman, yo. You guys are not realizing the power of the Batman, yo.
I think your idea, if it hasn't been kicked around already, will come up at some point in the future. I think certainly when they get Brave and the Bold or whatever the next iteration of Batman is on screen, because it'll probably be before Batman 3, the Batman Part 3 comes out. I think that discussion will be had of can we No Way Home this somehow? Because Hollywood is all about imitation, right? I mean, it is. Yeah. They see the $2 billion next to No Way Home. And every studio that's got this IP, Marvel included, is looking at and they were involved in this one, but they're looking at that angle. specifically, right? And Secret Wars effectively is going to be Marvel trying to do a No Way Home on a grander scale, right? We're going to bring in all these universes that people have played characters across time and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But you're right. Batman in particular has a unique lineage just in Hollywood because it's been done so many times. And the actors who've done it generally are big name actors, you know, and have their fans. All of them do, right? They do. Like even, I mean, as actors, maybe not Clooney as Batman, but George Clooney as actor, people have liked in other roles. So like, yeah, the idea of a on-screen moment where they're brought together, of course that will be talked about if it hasn't been already. And it was, if it was done, like, you know, if you were to expand, again, Crisis on Infinite Earths, if you were to expand the DC multiversal story to make that feasible, people would absolutely show up for it.
But here's my thing. And and because that's not the approach that I would take in putting them on in one film. I don't want to see all three of them on one screen. I want them to take their separate paths.
I get it. But I'm just telling you that if you do that, the inevitable discussion will be how to bring them together. And you know
that's where James Gunn comes in and says, no way. That's his job. But let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of that idea. Continue your Batman with Matt Reeves' universe. James Gunn, do your DC. Announce all you need to announce after Superman. Because right now, look at what you did. And then you got Batman Beyond, which is a different take. Not even a different take. It's just a different Batman with an older Bruce. You can do those things with Batman because he's that popular of a character, yo. He's right up there with Spidey. He's right up there with Wolverine. That's $3 billion I just mentioned to you right now because I guarantee you that the Batman 2 is going to make $1 billion. Guarantee. Guarantee, Brian.
Yeah, I would agree.
DCU, whatever the potential is, however you use them, you can possibly get that. Because look at what you just did with a half a second.
Yeah.
Batman Beyond, you got Batman fans and younger. This PG, that's another $1 billion possibly, Brian. Stop playing games.
The Batman 2 Matt Reeves has confirmed is set in wintertime. And a rumor popped up that one Victor Fries might make an appearance in the Batman Part 2. Now, this is different than some of the other villain lines we've heard from Hush to Court of Owls or would Barry Keoghan's Joker do anything, or blah, blah, blah. But I got to admit, in Matt Reeves' parlance, given what we've seen him do with the other villains and just thinking back to how the animated series treated Victor Fries, I saw the internet being like, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
Victor Fries could be awesome in this universe. Got me excited.
Like you said, he's 2 for 2 with villains. To have him and Victor Fries is a tragic character, but you understand his motivations. If you go back to our previous episode where we talked about the Heart of Ice episode, I think that's where he makes his first appearance.
Yes, it is.
Yo, that is a captivating performance from whoever performed that, whoever wrote that episode. Didn't it win some awards?
It won an Emmy for writing that episode.
There you go. So I'm in for that because Matt Reeves, and listen, yeah, he's taking a long time. But when he gives you the goods, you ain't complaining too much. I got to ask this because I had this conversation with Freddie. For me, if it ain't Alan Ritchson as Batman, I say go new guy. Start fresh. No, none of these actors that John Campion. I've heard John Campion say Jake Gyllenhaal. And it's like, dude, really? He said, what's that dude that play the guy that plays the not the Patriot? He's on The Boys, the Captain America not a variant, but the Captain America guy.
Homelander?
Not Homelander, the other dude, the one that can beat Homelander. He's like
Jensen Ackles.
Yes.
Yeah.
which he's voiced before.
He's been Batman in the animated.
Yeah. I'm looking for somebody new. I'm looking for an actual representation. The way James Gunn is doing this, I'm looking for somebody that's going to be as big as the silhouette that we saw on this in Creature Commandos. He has to be, for me, you saw the disparity between Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill in terms of height. I think the way we've seen him in comic books, they're there in terms of physical.
They look about the same. I mean, Superman's 6'4", 225, and Batman, Bruce Wayne is supposed to be about that. He's pretty close to that.
So I'd like to see that. Your thoughts on whether it should be? I'm pretty sure you don't care whether. I mean, you wouldn't mind if it was Alan Ritchson. If it ain't Alan Ritchson, would you consider going brand new and finding your Batman?
Of course. I mean, I think, and honestly, like, let's be honest about the Alan Ritchson discussion. That is something that has evolved over time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Alan Ritchson, I remember him as Arthur Curry in Smallville as Aquaman. He's playing a surfer dude in his 20s. That's a long way from Bruce Wayne, right?
Yeah.
We obviously know him as Hawk from Titans. Like, that's a long way from where it's only when he bulked up and started bringing, honestly, some Batman affect into Reacher, because that's what the Reacher character in the novels is like at times. That's when people started to make that comparison. So the idea that there's another actor out there of some age who can't similarly transform physically or vocally, of course there are. Like, not to bring in He-Man here, but like, I don't know anything about Nicholas Galitzin, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's good in the sense of I'm not biased in any way for or against whatever he's going to do with He-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yes, you could bring someone in total white space and just be like, yeah, I don't know anything about this guy, but you start to see the photos of him training and bulking up. Like, okay, the guy's 6'3", and now he looks like he's 220, 230 pounds. And, you just wait to debut the voice. And I think it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I think what'll be interesting for me to see is the studio willing to put another relative unknown into that role, in the sense that David Cornsweet, relative unknown, gets the Superman role. Would they do another relative unknown as Batman? Or do they feel pushed to have a bigger name somewhere on one of these posters? That, I think, is more the question.
Yeah. I mean, if this is about business, then business tells me find somebody new that can play the role. And at the in the movie, you have him say, I'm Batman. That's it. That's what it is.
Well, Christian Bale wasn't. I mean, so Christian Bale's interesting, right? Because he had been nominated for an Oscar in Empire of the Sun as a kid. But he basically disappeared from Hollywood in the 90s, right? It was only then when he comes back as American Psycho, people saw Bruce Wayne, right? They saw they saw the sadistic side of Bruce Wayne, but they saw it in that movie, which has led to the fan casting that then, ultimately translated to Chris Nolan picking him. But at the time, it's not like Christian Bale was like, oh my God, that's the biggest name in Hollywood.
For me, was Equilibrium. That's when it clicked for me.
But again, he was not. Like, his role in the Batman trilogy is what made Christian Bale the guy that could go on the top of a poster in a lot of other movies. It wasn't the other way around. Like, honestly, if they announced Ritchson and Chalamet, that would be by far the most established, biggest name, like, tandem that we've seen of this type in a while. Probably really since they used to do it with Batman in the 90s, right? Like, when Val Kilmer became Batman, he was a star. Like, when Clooney became Batman, he was a star. Like, that was more star-driven. Even when Michael Keaton got Batman, it was like, people were like, what? Who?
Yeah.
Like, gung-ho? Like, they weren't, it wasn't like Michael Keaton. Oh my God.
No. I was like, Michael Keaton? It was Michael Keaton? That's exactly the reaction.
See, people need to remember that, right? Because history gets revised. Yeah. Jack was the, like, oh my God, they got Nicholson to be the Joker. That was the name. Keaton was kind of like really? He can do that?
Even Heath Ledger, right?
In that part, for sure. He was like a young heartthrob actor.
We didn't get Heath Ledger. We got the Joker.
That's the Aaron Pierre parallel, right? Heath Ledger, he's unrecognizable.
Yeah.
But he is the Joker. Yeah.
Lobo. We ain't gonna spend too much time here because again, we spoke
we
about
talked
this.
about it a year ago.
Yeah. And this is what I think they should have done with this announcement. Not announce it.
Oh,
Try to keep it as secret as you did with Blade in Deadpool Wolverine. That was a huge surprise. Keep that because it's not a secret that this dude is Lobo. He hasn't cut his hair for a reason. So what are we talking about here? Why announce it and now everybody's drawing him up? And well, by the time we see him, we will already have visualized what he looked like. Even though I think, Brian, they're gonna make him look dope. He's gonna look fantastic. I have questions about his performance. Is it gonna be Jason Momoa in makeup? Or is it gonna be the ferocious Lobo and witty one? Right? That'll be the difference maker for me. Visually, I think he's perfect for this role. But why announce it now for a movie you probably haven't started? I know you're gonna start filming. It doesn't come out till when? 2026?
Yeah.
Why announce it now? Wait. Or don't announce it at all. Because everybody knows. Come on. Your thoughts.
I have only two thoughts. One is I think the casting announcement was done backwards. So they should have announced that Lobo will be playing Jason Momoa, not that Jason Momoa will be playing Lobo. Because if ever a comic book character looked like it was made to actually imitate life, it is this. This is the worst kept secret of all time.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, he lobbied the old DC regime to play Lobo the last time, and effectively when he's playing Aquaman, he's basically kind of like sticking in little bits of pieces of a Lobo personality.
Of course, because it's his personality.
This is what he's always like. Right? Is this acting? I think that's the question. Is this acting, or is Jason Momoa just waking up and doing his everyday life when he plays this? Look, it's great. I mean, I understand you can have minor concerns about it, but he is born to do this. He will look great in it. And I think the thing that I liked, and this is why I think they announced it, he can help sell Supergirl. That is why I think they announced it.
Very good point.
Because there were rumors initially he was going to cameo in Superman, and I was very opposed to that. I was like, why? Like, what does that achieve? Right? We don't. But Supergirl, where you're trying to basically put over a character that has never been successful on the big screen before. There I could see his value. And then also the idea of what Lobo is, right? Lobo, this intergalactic bounty hunter who's kind of planet hopping. Well, the Supergirl story is a revenge story that takes place over multiple planets. So it makes sense that she might encounter him somewhere in deep space, which would then create the natural tie-in again to the broader universe. So I like the placement of Lobo. And they said, what I heard after was Momoa's like schedule. It's not that much. He's basically a small part. It's not a cameo, but he is not. Think like maybe Michael Keaton in Flash. Like he's not in an enormous amount of this movie, so he's not going to upstage Millie Alcock, but he is going to get some people buzzing in a way that like just a post-credit scene wouldn't. So I think they're playing the cards smartly here, and that's why I think they made it public early.
Lobo is definitely sort of that thread-like character. And I'm going to put a link so that everybody can go back to our conversation regarding, female-led superhero films or female-led films, period, and being successful, right? The conversation that we had is basically what people used to say about black films. It can't be global. It can't make $1 billion. Then you got Black Panther, right? And so we're saying with female, look at Furiosa. There's people that thought the movie was great, right? Apparently, I didn't see it.
It's not nearly as good as Fury Road, but it's not as bad as the box office would tell you it is. That's what I would say.
Yes. So
and this is our point. Was that's a recurring theme across female-led action and sci-fi.
So using Jason Momoa to sell this is the right call.
Yep.
I just wish they would have waited a little bit to a little bit later to do it, not now. But
I hear what you're saying about like they could have just waited 6 months. I mean, they didn't have to do it before. There's a lot of like, why are you getting anything in the way of Superman? There's a little bit of that right now. I guess that I am a little intrigued because I'm assuming, shouldn't assume this, I guess, but I'm kind of assuming his small role in Supergirl will be that he's in conflict with Supergirl to start. Because I'm assuming the way they're building this up is that he's going to bounty hunt Superman at some point, and you have to kind of set the stage for that, even if he winds up being a quasi anti-hero, not necessarily on the side of villainy in the long run. I assume that one of the things people want to see on screen is a Superman versus Lobo.
Guess who's gonna be tight? Guess who's gonna be tight when they see that?
Who?
The Rock. Clayface. You know he's gonna be tight because that's what he wanted to do. But guess what? It ain't happening. Clayface. What seems to be because the more news that comes out about this movie has me thinking about where they're trying to go with this film. So what news have we gotten for Clayface?
I think we're going to be proven. I think your theory for Marvel is going to get proven right in DC, and we're going to test it with Clayface. So people have asked Gunn a lot, why this? Like, why are you bothering when you've got all this other stuff? And he got kind of prickly about it. And he basically was like, look, I told you guys, it's about script and writing. And he's like, Mike Flanagan came in with a completed script and an idea. He sold me, he pitched me, and won me over. And he said, I can't believe that I want to make a Clayface movie, but Clayface is ready. Those other things you guys are talking about are not. So we're making Clayface. Like, end of
discussion. Yeah.
So there are rumors that this thing is gearing up to shoot by February. So next month. Now, we don't have a director. We don't have a star. But presumably, if they're getting that ready, they must know one or both of those people, and we just haven't announced it. Because Flanagan wrote it. He's not directing it. So
is Flanagan a notable writer?
What's that?
Is Flanagan a notable writer?
Yeah, I think he's got sort of a following from stuff. I would say but the thing that stands out, because I don't do a lot with horror.
Me neither.
So he only writes horror genre movies. So that's what kind of got my attention.
There you go.
And then they said, this is a low budget film, which also to my mind that's a horror movie. So this is going to be an R-rated, low budget Clayface movie that looks to me like they're going to test drive. Can we do like a creature feature? Make it dark, make it maybe gory, make it scary. And oh, by the way, I didn't know this until they put this out for the film. You know when they're putting this out?
When?
Month before Batman 2.
Interesting.
So that's going to be like even though it's not necessarily Pattinson, right? This is in theory something else. This could be Elseworlds again. We know where Clayface comes from. We know what universe he belongs to in the comics. Like, so if you get a world where you've got like Penguin, you've got Clayface, you got a lot of Batman stuff leading into Batman.
The thing that comes to mind, Brian, when I hear that is, okay, great. This is what Batman has to contend with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what doing these sort of experimenting with these villains, that's what it does. This is what Batman has to contend with. And this is what we want to see. I'm not interested in seeing a non-scary villain. Because if at first glance, you may see Oz. If you put Oz in a situation with Batman, you first time seeing him, what makes him scary? We know what makes this dude dangerous. And this is what Batman has to contend with. We saw what the Riddler was doing and his reasons for what he was doing. We get it. This is what Batman has to contend with. So I'm all for it.
I do think that fits my idea. Why would Gunn fast track it? Because he can experiment with it. That's what it feels like to me. This actually feels more significant than people realize in terms of, and they're saying with the budget, most of the budget reportedly is basically just about making Clayface look good on screen, which obviously, as we know, it will be an interesting proposition, which again tells you if they're not spending money on sets, then I mean, that's like, it's all pointing to horror movie. But that's what a horror movie is. It's like you pick one house, one forest, one place, and then you just shoot for $10 million and hope to scare the bejesus out of everybody for an hour and a half. And if that's what this is, and it works, you're going to see like 6 of these, which is exactly what you asked Marvel to do with the Ghost Rider sort of Midnight Suns buildup.
That's what it has to be.
And it's feeling like DC might beat them to this idea if it works. We'll see. But I think it's a noble experiment that doesn't cost them a lot of money.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and I'm interested in seeing what this is going to look like, because I have a sort of visual in my mind about how they're going to make this look. What games is he going to be playing in terms of getting what he wants? How is he going to change? Because I remember in Batman the Animated Series, he had to really concentrate on who in order for him to remain as who he changed into. And so what happens when that concentration falters? What does he turn into? Who does he horrify? This is brilliant. So there's some more Superman screening chatter.
Yeah. I
have my thoughts on it, because to me it's not really a subject of conversation unless it's something different from I like to hear your thoughts on it. For me, this is expected because of who's doing it.
Yeah, I think it validates a little bit of our former discussion, which was it was a little peculiar that there was a screening with no leaks. Then all of a sudden we got this flurry of leaks, good, bad, and in between. We were kind of debating like the validity of that. And I was sort of saying, well, this project, there's agendas involved with whether it fails or succeeds. And then you come to find out that some of these screening reviews have been debunked as just fiction, like pure, basically someone saw a rumor that someone hated it. So then it was like a fan crafted, it's awesome, total BS. Like, I think we're back at square one, which is he showed a first cut, like unedited, basically, with some visual effects to friends, crew, and a few WB execs on the lot. Like, that's raw. Like, I don't even...
Yeah.
Like, to me, like, I don't even, like, that is meant for critique because it's going to get edited in post-production. I'm like... So when I read that, I was like, I'm back to not believing anything, good or bad, that people say about that cut, because it means almost nothing.
But that's sort of I told you, I edit. And so when I'm showing my stakeholders a first cut, I go to them and tell them, listen, I haven't edited this in for finality. This is just a rough cut of what we have so far. This is, forget about the colors, forget about all this other stuff. I just want you to see this. But people go into it, oh, it's missing this. And I'm like, I know it's missing music. I know. That's why I'm telling you what I'm telling you. Go into it just to see, listen to what's going on here. Tell me, this is the message? Whatever it is. This is just the first cut. This is nothing. This is similar to Tom Holland talking about the first draft of Spider-Man. Do you think I give a damn about what that first draft is all about? Whether it's good or not? There was also mention of, oh, it looks like Guardians of the Galaxy. And
also made up. Also made up. Yeah.
But even so, what would you expect it to look like when it comes from the hands of James Gunn? He did Guardians of the Galaxy. And those movies, I think, except for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it looks like you were on a studio set when they went on
Eagle the Planet. And all
yes,
yeah, it gets a little.
Yes.
It gets, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I didn't like that part too much, but outside of that, he's doing it. So I expect it to look somewhat similar, but still, it's James Gunn. It's James Gunn. So that does it for DC.
Oh, we got one more.
Oh, what?
Our boy Aaron Pierre.
Oh,
making some news. We got to give him a shout since we got him his job.
Since we influence, because that's what we do. We influence. the people out there and realizing, yo, there's nothing to really debate or to discuss. That's your guy. Stop trying to sell me on these other dudes. Some of them could have done it, but this is not the guy, especially if you started off. We need to see Green Lantern, and there's your Green Lantern, Aaron Pierre. There was a movie, Brian, that Chadwick Boseman, may he rest in peace, did, where he was a cop from Africa. I forget where. I think it was Nigeria. I don't know. South Africa. I'm not sure. It was on Netflix. And he was investigating the disappearance of his sister. In that movie, he has an accent. Not so different than what he had in Black Panther. Nobody really saw that movie. I saw it after the fact. But when I saw that movie, I said, that's where they said that there's our Black Panther. Rebel Ridge is there's your Green Lantern. And we spoke about it immediately after we saw it. And boom, 3 weeks later, Aaron Pierre. And what's he talking about? How his approach for this movie, contrary to other people. Go ahead.
Look, I mean, he's saying all the right things, and it's nice to hear. So he appeared on a show in the UK. First off, you made a comment because his first thing he said was, "quote DC gave me the call."
They called him immediately, yo.
I'm very grateful, very happy to be part of the team. The character is John Stewart, part of the Green Lantern Corps. He said, for me, this character has always radiated class, always radiated charisma, strength, and identity. So I'm very happy to be bringing him to a live action context. And then he was asked, are you training for the role? And he said, most of what's happening right now is my homework, my physical preparation, and my extensive DC homework. Pierre said he's been doing a deep dive into anything relevant from the comics, films, and TV series and more. Quote, I'm trying to be the best student I can, trying to get the best grades here. I'm mildly OCD. I'm very, very meticulous as a person, so I really want to leave no stone unturned and want to feel as prepared as I can going into this, end quote.
And that, my friends, is how you approach doing a superhero character. It's not about bringing your own flair. Sure, you can bring some of it, a little bit, but if it's unrecognizable to us as fans, as that not being a trait of this superhero, we have problems.
Yeah.
So take note, people, actors and actresses out there wanting to play a hero or a character from the comics. This is the homework. He's taking a page out of Tom Cruise because that's what he does. He does research.
Later, Cruise stopped transforming as an actor, though.
Yeah,
Cruise did, yeah.
But he talked about it when he was doing The Last Samurai, about the research that he had to do in order to really portray the character that he did portray in that movie. So Aaron Pierre is doing what he needs to do in order for us not to go crazy when we see it.
Well, I think it's look, it's what you want to hear, to your point. It suggests to me that people aren't tuning into Lanterns and ultimately going to the theater to see Aaron Pierre. They're tuning in to see John Stewart. And so his job is to inhabit a version of John Stewart or mix up several versions of John Stewart, more likely, and sort of bring that to life as best he can. That's very different than the actors who kind of say, I'm just going to be myself in every single role, which we know more than a few of those. And you can be successful doing that as a star, but that's not what a role like this demands. So we'll see what he comes up with. But at the very least, you'll know that whatever you see will have been a product of what he's read and what he's watched and what he's studied, and kind of felt like, okay, I can bring some of the animated series version here, some of that comic storyline there, and then I can kind of infuse that into the storyline that this particular show wants to have. So yeah, it's just a different approach than, say, Anthony Ramos publicly took with regard to his Hood character, where he basically was like, I didn't look at any of that. I'm just going to do my thing with whatever's in the script. Like, I mean, that's an approach, but it's probably not one that's going to resonate as well with fans of your character.
And you're
they're not going to see, you think they're going to see you in the costume.
But I would say for most fans who don't know the Red Hood, that's what they're going to see, Brian, because not a lot of people. Did I say the Red Hood again? The Hood. Not many people know the Hood. Marvel fans, even Marvel fans who've read the comics on the casual, they may not know too much about the Hood. You're going to have to contend with the fans who know who the Hood is. How much of them are there? I don't know. But for Marvel or comic book, guys that really study the comics and read the comics on a day-to-day, they know these things. And they're going to be judging your performance. Other people who don't know, they're going to be judging Anthony Ramos, and he's playing this Hood character. I don't know how that's going to resonate at the end of it, but we'll definitely know. Marvel. People stirring things up.
Oh, man.
People are opening.
Not people. I think it's pretty clear. This is going to be a recurring bit on our show. We might have to make it its own segment. Marvel.
There you go.
Remember Bo Jackson back in the day?
Yes,
my guy. Bo knows.
Bo knows. Oh my God, Bo knows. Okay, so Bo DeMayo versus Disney.
Oh,
and What If? Ryan, we already had a discussion about what I thought about What If. I did not care for it. Visually, it was dope. The problem here is storytelling and the types of stories that they're telling.
Yeah.
We have no issues with the animation. I think the animations, when there's action and things are happening, we're like, oh snap. Except for I'm telling you, this Godzilla Hulk thing was. I'm telling you, what they've done to the Hulk is just a mockery, yo. It's a mockery. And then you're trying to do Voltron in my face after we're excited for the real Voltron that's coming up. You want to do this Avengers Assemble? Like, dudes, I'm sorry. If I'm in the room, I'm like, yo, I'll do a Kevin on Born Again. Stop what you're doing, erase all of that, and start again. Read these books. I'm not saying do these books, but it's the inspiration of these things stand alone. This multi-connected stuff and what you guys are doing to these characters, in my opinion, is a horrible job.
Here's the irony. I think we're going to look back on What If the show, and this is going to go down as one of the bigger what ifs in the history of Marvel, because I really feel like this could have been an Emmy level concept, especially with as you said, over the course of the 3 seasons, they really found their stride from an animation perspective, visually. And yet they just didn't seem willing to either do the obvious in their storytelling or write things that were more meaningful. Something happened in the back room. I think you may have hit on it for season 3, which is they may have gotten orders from on high to make this more for the kids.
Disneyfication.
Because there's no question this entire season is pretty light. Like, even when you get to the end and they're sort of like saving the watch, like, you just don't feel the gravity or the stakes of that compared to where we were at points in season 1. I mean, there's even these, I was thinking like little bits in season 1 that are small, but were really kind of eye-opening in the moment, like when it's Perfect Ultron and he just dispatches Thanos like severely in like 2 seconds. And you're like, that was a moment. It was just like interesting, and this show got away from that type of stuff. Like Godzilla, Hulk, and Mechanized Avenger, Voltron, like that's really light. Like that's
more fluffy. Agatha?
Fluffy. Yeah. And there felt like this season, they almost felt a little bit hostage to the characters of the moment, right? The Agatha point. Like we got to bring in, like, we got to put over the people who were showing you in live action. And it's like, you don't. I read an article critiquing the show that I completely agreed with this one point, which was, why did they stay away from the really big fundamental questions of the MCU they had already built? Which I think in season 1 and even parts of season 2, they did start to go in that direction and they didn't. So someone was like, well, what if Thanos snapped away the other half of the universe, right? Like, what would that have looked like? Or even in this season, the one time they did something remotely interesting, they botched it, which was the Red Guardian stops Winter Soldier from killing Stark's parent. I was like, okay, as an idea, I am interested. But then when you turn it into a comedy, a buddy cop comedy, you lose me. And I think that's this show. That was this show in microcosm. It's like interesting question, terrible execution.
By people who probably haven't read the What If comics or glanced over it, who took the Anthony Ramos approach. I'm sorry.
But something clearly changed because season 2 was serialized. Like season 2, like basically was like you had to watch you had to watch them in a row. And this season was like there was a little bit of that at the end of the season, but a lot of these you could just watch like one-offs, like old school, like Transformers cartoons or something. Like again, it's inconsistency. They couldn't figure out what they were doing or what they wanted to do, and the show really suffered and left so much on the table. Now that it's gone.
I was hoping for what's that show that they do is the anthology type show, the horror,
there's American Horror Story,
the one on Netflix.
Yeah, and there's also even what was it, Star Wars Visions? That's like an anthology animated series, right? Which you like the beginning of in particular, but gives people
but the first is Star Wars Vision. The first episode, and in Star Wars Visions 2, there's 2 episodes that are really well done. I don't know if you've checked them out, but
I haven't seen season 2, so no.
I wouldn't say watch season 2. You can look at the thumbnails of it and be like, okay, this is the one I want to watch. Yes. Yeah, man. They really botched What If. And this was when we talked about a long time ago what we were looking forward to. What If was high on our list. We talked about what if you can do this for as long as the MCU is working, you can do What If. Instead, they've treated it like whatever, go to town, I don't care, and put it out. And look at where we are.
So there's someone who agrees with us. So Bo DeMayo, he was the showrunner and writer of X-Men 97. He took to socials to talk about What If. And this is a layered, loaded commentary. So his first lead, What If Season 3, hashtag, yikes, just yikes. I'd watch more to give notes on how it could easily have been done better, but I have to watch some water boil. Then went on to talk about how the dialogue was kind of simple, flat, boring. Okay. So, lest anyone miss what's really happening here, the writer and showrunner of What If Season 3 is Matthew Chauncey. Who is Matthew Chauncey? Matthew Chauncey is now the writer and showrunner of X-Men 97. He is the person tasked with rewriting Bo DeMayo's script for Season 2 of X-Men 97. So don't get it twisted, people. Bo DeMayo's criticisms and commentary on What If Season 3 are less about What If and much more about X-Men 97. There's no way that's a coincidence.
How does that make you feel about X-Men 97 Season 2?
Well, why don't we ask Bo how he feels about this?
Because Bo knows.
Someone did. And he then went on to spill the beans a little bit on what was going on behind the scenes on X-Men 97. So he said the dialogue is flat and obvious and the premises are just weird. I mean, amen. I can't argue with the creators of that. But then he said his X-Men 97 Season 2, so the one that was set up, that we saw where we left it, he said, quote, it's been torn up because it intercut time hopping across the first 2 episodes and was deemed too complicated, end quote. So meaning Chauncey ripped up what he wrote and was rewriting it. Simple. But see, this is what, go back to, we pulled a clip from our show. We talked about, with Tracy, we talked about what was going on here. And I said at the time they were going to rewrite enough of X-Men 97 to make sure they didn't have to give him a credit. I think he's basically confirming to you that is what is happening. That they are basically getting rid of enough of what he put in there as his arc so as not to have him be attached to the show in any way when they put it out. And the guy who's doing that is Matthew Chauncey. So Bo DeMayo's coming for Matthew Chauncey.
You know you know what this makes me think about, man? And not to say that in either setting or scenario they were right for doing what they did or saying what they said, but like, yeah, he did what he did was probably inappropriate or whatever. So, but so was, and I hate to say it, but so what? So were the things that James Gunn said a long, long time ago before anything, and they fired
He was
him.
fired. He was fired by Disney.
And
Yeah.
but guess what happened? He came back.
Yeah.
And so it's just the approach here is obviously different. It's like get rid of him and that's it. Destroy what he did. Let's rewrite it and make it horrible. Or what? Because Brian, it's disheartening to have witnessed and seen season 1 of X-Men 97, it being up for an award, to perhaps, based on what if season 2, what if season 3, and to see what they've done to them, to now having to see what they do to X-Men 97, something that we treasure like, oh my God. If it's bad, I don't know.
It's a huge risk. It's a huge risk. I mean, it doesn't guarantee that it will be bad, but I think it will be unfortunate if we see this show and it feels like the Joker 2 of animated, where the first one captivates and wins awards and you're just chomping at the bit for what comes next. And then there's this massive step down in quality, which is in play. And again, this is not a commentary on Bo DeMayo's behavior, because we don't know. That's a whole other conversation, right? So we can't say the studio was 100% wrong to dismiss him, because we don't know what happened.
Yeah.
What we're saying is, from a creative standpoint, when you have a 2-season arc, which this was, the first 2 seasons were built together with one unifying idea, and you cut that off in the middle and totally change it, the degree of difficulty is high and the element of risk is high, and the odds that this disappoints are way higher than it would have been otherwise. And it really does make me feel like, my thing of like, I felt like Cape Crusader season 1 ended with some momentum. It took a while to get going, ended with some momentum. But obviously we know Bruce Timm and Ed Brubaker, they're the ones shepherding season 2. It makes me think, like, if I'm laying odds, I think Cape Crusader season 2 is going to be better than X-Men 97 season 2 for this reason, that the creatives are going to be carrying one forward, and the other one, they're ripping it up and trying to patchwork it. And the people doing it, their other work would say we should not have a ton of confidence.
What If was an atrocity. Should be in the same bucket as Secret Invasion.
That's the right comparison, because like, it's the idea of it should have been at the highest of levels. So the disappointment is greater when you flub something like that than it is if you mess up something that's kind of whatever to begin with.
This is just, I'm gonna be thinking about this the whole day. Like, damn, man.
What If should be the 5th entrant, right? It should be basically Blue-Eyed Samurai, Invincible, X-Men 97, Cape Crusader, and What If should basically be locking down all of the nomination spots for Emmys every season they come out. Basically, that's kind of where we should be at some point. And this show never getting there in 3 years is going to go down as one of my bigger Marvel disappointments of the last 10 years.
This is even more disappointing than what they've done with the Hulk. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man teaser. Because of my feelings of what Marvel has done lately, I really didn't give this a first glance with an eye of whether I'm going to like this or not. Then I sort of looked at it again after some time, and this looks interesting.
I agree.
I was having a conversation with Freddie, and I told him, listen, I liked the original Spider-Man because he was, a college student. He was working. He was at a different stage in his life, and I liked the storylines that they were heading with that character and the different adventures that he was in it wasn't so much connected. Some of them stood on their own, but it wasn't about the villains so much. It was more about Peter and navigating this life that he lives.
Mhm.
And so we're gonna go back to high school. What has me interested is to see whether or not this new look of Spider-Man, because I remember them doing a version of 3D in the Fox joint, and it was horrible when he was swinging, and it just
Yes.
looked weird,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This one looks different, but better, obviously, in the terms of the idea of the 3D swinging stuff. So I think that's cool. This is a comic book ripped from the pages, and just sort of we're seeing it sort of come to life in animation.
I
And
like
a different,
that, by the way.
yeah.
I appreciated that it is distinctive visually
Yes.
from X-Men 97 and
Yes.
from What If. I
Yes.
actually really like that.
Yes. So your thoughts, Brian, on what you saw, and there are going to be a lot of, I think, just like they did in the Spider-Man series on Fox, we're going to see a lot of villains. We're going to see a lot of heroes. We're going to see a lot of characters. How they use them in this, hopefully, is not Disneyfied, which I don't know, at this point, I would have put it past them. But let's see how this is written, and your thoughts.
Yeah, so I really liked it. I really liked the visuals first. That's what caught my attention, was just that it looked different. It looked, as you said, very classic comic booky, but it didn't look cheap, and it didn't look fake or like sort of stilted in the way Spidey moves. So I was very happy with that. Interesting. So my daughter turns 10 in a couple of weeks. So I popped this up and I said, "What do you think of this?" She was fired up. So just so you get a sense of like, and she grew up watching like, Spidey and His Amazing Friends for like little kids. And like, she's seen most of the Marvel movies at this point, and interesting. I haven't shown her Holland's Spider-Man trilogy yet. She's seen Tobey's Spider-Man one and likes that quite a bit. That's actually her favorite.
Okay.
But she was excited. She was like, "I can't wait to see this." So that gives you a sense of like that tween teen, like it probably does hit that nerve. It is, granted, one data point, but she's somebody who has seen other stuff, is like interested in it. Things I'm probably interested to see. So, Coleman Domingo voicing this version of Norman Osborn. I'm interested to see that take. Although we're gonna bring Bo back in here in a second on this because he has thoughts.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize. So Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are also in this series. So they're animated forms. To our prior discussion about James Gunn and the fungibility of DC, Marvel is starting to kind of move in that direction too. So Daredevil and Kingpin have smaller roles as the same actors in this series as well. But yeah, overall, I'm intrigued. This looks better than probably I thought it was going to when they first announced it. And I think they repurposed it, because initially it was like they called it like the college years or something like that, and then they changed it to Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man and made it more, I think,
freshman year.
Yeah, so they kind of, but I think it was freshman year college. It wasn't freshman year high school when they first conceived it. Okay. So I think they have tweaked it. So yeah, no, I'll be there. It's the end of January 29th, and I think it's like I'll be watching. It looks like the household will be watching when it comes out.
Yeah. So yeah, looking forward to seeing Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. What does Bo know this time?
So Bo DeMayo resurfaced after this trailer came out, and he said he called out Marvel to put a stop to what he referred to as race swapping white antagonists into black people, saying it reads funny. And of course, Coleman Domingo, as Norman Osborn, will be the latest iteration of that. And he said, "Here, let me rephrase. Marvel Studios, please stop race swapping white villains to black people. It reads funny. Kang, High Evolutionary, Norman Osborn, Electro, Mordo." And he kind of went on to list everyone listed happen to. And then he said, "Much of what we consume, especially kids, visually influences how we see the world." And he added that when the heroes are often white and canon and villains are race swapped into black characters for representation, the visual story becomes the white good beating up the black bad. End quote.
And supposedly, Brian, Denzel Washington is going to be in Black Panther 3 as a villain.
Oh, so
that's the rumor.
Going to carry forward his
You know what? You know what that? Yeah. You know what that is? You know what that is? Or Bo is gonna probably look at it as a black on black crime. Yeah, me in my mind when I look at stuff like that, I'm not even really looking at it that way. But when you point it out, it's like, yeah, yo, it's like, why are we waste swapping these characters all the time, or these types of characters? Yeah, it definitely reads funny, but I mean, I'm still mad that Isaiah Bradley goes crazy and they built a statue of this dude.
Well, that runs counter a little bit to what Bo's saying, right? Because
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie is Captain America now, right? So that's the opposite of what he's saying. And assuming we get Miles Morales in the next iteration of Spider-Man, that would be the opposite of what he's saying. I get his point, but I would say like it's not been universal. I do think where his conversation starts to tread into a, probably the bigger picture conversation of what is possible and what is saleable. It's like we've talked about on our show, because it came up actually predominantly because of the presumably dead J.J. Abrams, Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Superman discussion of like what could you change the ethnicity of and have it be okay versus what seems a little off to do that with, right? It's like we've had that discussion on this show before, and I think that's kind of what he's sort of touching on here. There's sort of an implication of like, you're only race swapping the bad guys. Does that mean you feel like you can't race swap some of the good guys? And I think that's probably a fairly legitimate question, because you start to run into, again, the studio is going to say, well, Black Panther sold perfect, but then people will say, yeah, but that's not a swap. There's no equivalent of that you're going to put out.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you do, we're going to find out with Captain America. We've obviously made Captain America Anthony Mackie instead of Chris Evans. That's a change. Like, could you do that with Thor? Could you do that with? I mean, they're trying it a little bit with Iron Man because you're getting Iron Heart, but like I don't.
But here's the thing, Brian. There are other black characters out there that can be done. Blue Marvel for Marvel. There's
as heroes. So this is the question, right? There are characters you don't have to make a swap that they could bring to life. Aaron Pierre as John Stewart is going to be an example of a classic non-swap heroic character brought to life.
Yeah. Let's see.
Bo knows. I'm telling you. But considering this is like already the 5th or 6th time this guy has weighed in since he was fired, whatever his lawyers are telling him, he either doesn't care or it doesn't apply to his social media. So I kind of feel like, all kidding aside, as we start to get more Marvel product, and especially as X-Men 97 season 2 comes out, we're going to be having a Bo Knows segment, because he's going to talk a lot about what's going on.
I guess he's making people just pay attention to certain things. And if we all agree on what's happening and we don't like it, Disney has to change, right? Or they're going to have to change, because the only way they change it if it hurts their pockets in the theaters. That is the only way it is going to change. But Brian, I told you a long time ago, the leader was going to look ridiculous. I
told you he looks like Funko Pop Doctor Strange. He looks like Doctor Strange's mustache and hair, but he's got like the fat heads or like I know he's supposed to have an enlarged head, but like
yes,
the combination of making him look like this bizarro Doctor Strange, if it doesn't work. I don't think it works. And we've heard, I guess the one thing I've seen about him from the screenings, there hasn't been as much relative to some of the other stuff, is that he's, quote, very divisive. Some people were okay with it, and some people hated it. That's the word.
And we'll see how much more people, because there's going to be a lot more people weighing in on this look, and that is going to be a topic of discussion. And you've heard it here first on the Nerd Jam Report. Listen, he is just a piece of the puzzle when it comes to Captain America 4. Again, this movie has been put together, ripped apart, put together, ripped apart. And despite whatever Anthony Mackie says or any of the damage control people are saying, this movie was a mess.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what the result of.
You see the quick cuts of like, weird stuff out of place, because you're like, I know that was shot like weeks apart or months apart.
And that is a challenge, man. Being an editor myself, when you get in two different cuts and you got to make it match, I'm telling you, one hair out of place, and we're gonna be like, So they better keep that fro tight.
Do you think Tim Blake Nelson what is intended to be a one and done return?
Oh
Because like,
yeah.
oh, you think he's toast in this movie? Like we don't get any more leader after this because it makes it seem like he's like behind the scenes and like okay.
It's gonna depend on whether people care enough
Well, that's
and
what I'm
how
asking.
this movie's received.
Yeah,
If
like
it's
what?
if this movie is bad and makes hardly no money, if they lose on this movie, why try to continue trying to work on a headache, man, that just won't go away? You keep on trying to fix it, and it just people still don't like it. How much money and resources are you going to spend on a project that isn't working or hasn't worked?
Yeah,
To me, it's just irresponsible in terms of business.
it's an odd creative to me that they really seem to have leaned on the Incredible Hulk movie a lot for this film. That's an odd creative one for me that I can't quite get my arms around. Right, because like Liv Tyler's coming back. Um, Tim Blake Nelson coming back. Obviously, they're using that as a connectivity to Red Hulk and whatever's going on with Harrison Ford. But like, considering it's a movie that Marvel itself kind of tends to leave to the side in most of its sort of broader MCU discussions, odd that they kind of seem to have used that as a springboard for Cap 4. I don't know. I'm just, that's one of those things that I would love to know, like how they landed on that.
And here's the thing. We know that it's been rumored that whatever storyline that they're going with this Captain America 4 will lead into World War Hulk, which again, I'm not for. Obviously, I don't care for it. I don't care what they're trying to do here. But again, if this movie is a failure at the box office, all that stuff is not going to be talked about. Again, nobody right now, yo, the disappointment that I don't get that they don't understand is the Hulk right now. The Hulk character is not a character that people are high on.
Yeah.
If they think they are crazy. And lastly, it sucks that they told this dude, yo, I don't think Andrew Garfield is the type of dude that will just lie just to lie. I think he was probably told, yo, just lie. And now he looks like a liar. You know how many relationships you've made questionable for other people who have relationship with Garfield now because of this? I'm joking. But it's like, why would you believe him? He straight up lied to everybody about him, just say no comment. No comment. Make it funny. Look over there and disappear. I don't know.
Yeah.
But don't go out and just lie. Because we already know. We were putting the clues back together a long time ago in the trailers that they put out. Who are these Spider-Men fighting? You know, there was a bunch of stuff out there that just pointed to, like there were pictures, and he was like, nah.
He kind of buried himself again though with this late. So he gets asked, he was asked by British GQ about Spider-Man 4, and he basically starts up the exact same routine as last time, where he says, you know, no, he's like, no, he's like, I haven't. He's like, but I realize no one's going to trust anything I say from now on. And I'm like, okay. But then he puts in a quote about, you know, I lied to everyone except a handful of people for 2 years. He's like, I lied to the internet for 2 years. He's like, and it felt great. It felt great to be able to just keep that secret. That's the part, Pablo, that went too far. Nah, like don't make it seem like you trolling.
It wasn't
us
a
when
secret.
We knew. We knew better. That's the thing, right? You didn't really surprise us.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah. You didn't fool anybody, yo.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, you're saying it felt great, but you weren't actually fooling anyone. You were just insulting our intelligence.
Yeah, you were just lying.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure the studio did have something to do with that, but like at the same time, like, come on, we know. The question has never been like whether he and Toby are coming back. The question is, how central are they to Spider-Man 4? And that's where it feels like the creative debate has been between Kevin and Tom Rothman, right? Rothman clearly wants more Toby and more Andrew and more team up. And it sounds like Kevin wants more live action, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, smaller scale. And it feels like Sony, ever so slightly, is starting to win that battle, unfortunately. Like it looked like Marvel had it won, but now it kind of feels like Sony is sort of pulling it back toward making it more spectacle and a little less story. But Andrew's in this movie. He's in this movie. Like, we know that. Just a question of how much.
At this point, I don't really care anymore, man. I'll see it if it comes out and see how people react to it. But in terms of, there's no excitement for this.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, this has the feel of like if you dropped it. Kind of parallels a little bit to Avengers Doomsday, but in a different way. It's like Endgame was such a high that if you had come out and said, "Hey, we're doing Avengers 5 like next year," I don't think I would have had the energy for it. You know what I mean? I would have been like, I am riding high off of the completion of this MCU Infinity Saga arc. Like, I almost don't want to see the Avengers for a little while. And with this, like, No Way Home was such an improbably good movie, an enjoyable movie, that like the idea of like, hey, we gotta gear up and suit back up and do another one of these team up spectacle. I'm just not jazzed for it. Like, that's why, like, to me, like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man thing, I can get excited for because it's so different and so tonally like not multiversal battle.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I'm kind of just like a little tired and don't need, another of these like Deadpool and Wolverine, like mass, like, and like these massive team ups, characters and cameos everywhere. Like, I don't need it. Like, I don't need it.
This is when business is just business for these guys, and they don't care about story. They just care about getting that buck. And
it's why I'm still having a tough time getting there on Thunderbolts, which I realize is a different type of team, but it's still that idea, and I'm kind of like, and it's why it's, I think for us, so easy to get excited about Superman, because that really does feel like the breath of fresh air.
I'm a little bit not excited, but curious to see Thunderbolts because we've heard good things.
Yeah, I'll see it.
Yeah.
I'm just not going in with like, I probably have more curiosity momentum for Fantastic Four, just because with that looking so different, I'm kind of like, all right, you got my attention with that.
There's a tug of war in terms of ideas of what story they want to tell. I don't care who wins anymore, really. I mean, if the news comes out in terms of continuing the storyline that ended up in No Way Home, which was a perfect ending, and a possible continuation into Spider-Man 4, that's what I was waiting for. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. The fact that they're going back to not the drawing board, but to going back to what they did previously and made them a lot of money, of course, yes. But there's where it would get dicey for any situation, Brian, because you got execs counting their money and you got the creatives thinking about telling a great story. And sometimes you don't want to have that battle, right? And you see who loses.
Yeah.
When you see the movie. But let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of all the things that we've discussed. Batman is always a topic of discussion. And it was just a second of it. That's what's crazy, Brian. Lobo, whatever. I would have just taken a different approach of how to reveal that, but I get the announcement now based on our conversation, but they should have done it a little bit different. Clayface is something that is becoming more and more interesting to me because of the approach that they're trying to take with the genre of superheroes, which is the approach that Marvel should really consider when considering certain characters. The Superman thing is whatever now. I don't care. I only care about what James Gunn shows me. That's how I'm going to put it. I only care about what James Gunn is showing me. I'll listen to what people are saying, but my, I guess, thoughts are just on what James Gunn shows me. And we'll see more, hopefully, in the Super Bowl. I got to craft something for Bo Knows because it's just, we can't pass up on that situation right there. Listen, What If was a disaster. Disappointing. And you got to question who's in the room when they're writing this. Are these people who are familiar with the characters and familiar with the reason or the theme behind What If? I don't know. These are just people. Oh, this would be cool if we did this. Yeah, make him a Voltron. Yeah, let's make the Hulk Godzilla. If I'm in that room, I'm like this, like. And hopefully, man, again, it's upsetting, man, that X-Men has to. I just feel like we're gonna be disappointed, yo.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I just feel like this is a wrap. It's a wrap. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The teaser looks interesting, and I'm definitely gonna show up for the first couple of episodes to see what this is gonna feel like and what story they're trying to tell. So that's something that we're looking forward to seeing. The leader. We said it a long time ago what this was gonna look like, and it looks like that. He is going to be the Mayor Humdinger of this movie. And then they got Garfield lying again. And it's like, dude, Aaron Pierre doing the due diligence compared to other people who are just going to bring themselves to the character. Let's see how that works out. Hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Nerd Gen Report.
The show goes on!